Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. I'm half the host, Dan Novalis. Chris, welcome.
Good to see you, Dan.
Yeah. Today we're really excited to have two distinguished authors on the show. We've got Allison Netzer and Liz High, who wrote the book "Think Like a Brand, Not a Bank." Welcome, Allison and Liz. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you guys. We're glad that we got connected through mutual friends in the industry. All of us bank marketing folks have to stick together, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, well, great. Well, let me share a little bit of an overview, and this is kind of coming from your book. But Allison, you had a background, and you started with Dell.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
way
then,
back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, and then rolled through. Yeah, was that like the 3.5? Slide.
Yeah, it was the mid 70s. Yeah,
right.
No, Chris, it was not. We did still have the discs and all of those things,
There
but
you
no,
go.
it was back in the day.
Yeah. But then you spent a couple of decades and worked with some very large and recognizable brands. I mean, Cisco and Dallas Cowboys and, a lot of those before you shifted into financial services.
Right.
So now you're in the hole with all of us and all of our listeners. Right?
Yeah, and I'm not leaving.
Yep. And worked with a major disruptive fintech brand and all of that. And I think we'll get into and bring forth some of that expertise and experience a little bit more as we go here. So
sure, sounds good.
Yeah. So great stuff there.
Thank you.
And Liz, you've had, from what I understand, a versatile and diverse marketing career. You've worked in a number of different marketing industries and roles as well, and that goes back quite a while. But your groove is you're a research, data-driven person too, which Dan's just falling in love with the data-driven side of your work world, as well, because that's certainly his. You've worked with a number of different successful and big consulting firms over the years as well. And I love what you say in here. Thinking like a brand is your day job.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So that's great. And Dan and I were hoping to kind of start here a little bit with your why. Why did you guys write this book?
That we get that question a lot. I would say, our inspiration are the bankers and the marketers that we've had the privilege of working with over the last 6 years now, Liz.
Yeah.
I know it may sound a little silly, but the creativity, the drive, the fun that is needed to think like a brand does exist in banking. We've experienced it daily. So the opportunity that the book we're highlighting is really just that. Financial institutions have the unique ability to be embedded into the lifestyles and businesses of everyone in the world. So to do that, you have to have a brand first mindset to make that accessible. So that's the spirit kind of behind the book, the motivation. And it was on Liz's bucket list. So, if that first preamble didn't make any sense, the shorter version is it was on her bucket list. And my part in the friendship is to push her to do things she doesn't want to do. So that's the other reason why I wrote it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is that, we were getting asked the same questions a lot when we started first working out with banks and credit unions. So, how can we do this? And a lot of the questions started with a but or a we can't. So the idea behind the book was to get everyone, to your point, around mindset that says, let's start with maybe a why not? Let's start with we can do something. And it was really to change the conversation from it's really hard to be creative in banking to actually there's some really quite, easy and small steps that you can take now.
That's really interesting. It's little words, when you're talking to somebody that often just hold so much meaning. So I love that. We can't because it's the status quo. There's not a law or regulation against it. It's just how, many things have been done for a long time.
Right. But we're a bank.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, can you talk a little about, the word brand floats around a lot. And I know like when I hear it, I think something, but somebody that's a banker that's not, coming from a marketing background might think about it differently. Can you talk a little about how you define brand and maybe a little bit about how most banks think of it?
Sure. We started the book really with what brand is not. And telling bankers what something is not is sometimes more effective than telling them what it can be. So brand it's not soft and fluffy. It's not an art project. Really a big goal of the book is making the business case for brand. A lot of the data that Liz brought to the table is showing the financial returns, not just the feel-good part, but the financial returns when you focus on brand and building that brand equity, right? The word equity is real. There is a real value there. So that's a big piece of kind of how we define it. And we also define it by who it belongs to. Marketing is a departmental function. Brand belongs to everyone, which sounds really nice and sweet, but it also means it is the responsibility of everyone to participate and carry it forward. So sorry to get a little fired up about that, but it is a discipline. It has a business function and a business value. So we try to give, the data, the argument, the business case, whether you're talking to a CFO, CEO, an investor, a fellow marketer.
So much more than just logo, than just a tagline.
Yes, it is. It is so much more than logo and a tagline. I think we need to think of a word for when we mean logo and tagline so that we stop saying that when we mean brand. I just think we need to think of a term. Doesn't have to be right this second, but that is a thing.
Funny you should say that, Allison.
Oh, okay. Please. What do you have?
Well, in the book, we have a kind of a pyramid which talks about everything that goes on. So it's the idea of the brand iceberg. In my kind of agency world, I talk about the idea of visual identity, which is what most banks associate with the brand concept. But that's the tiny little part of the pyramid. And to Allison's point, it's about everything you do. It's about everything you say. It's how you're seen in the market. We try not to use the culture word, but it's about how you behave as an organization. Mm-hmm. And all of that is what your visual identity should represent, but it's not what defines you.
Yeah, you guys put it's in the intro in the book about that this demands a shift in thinking. Mm-hmm. And that is a psychological venture as much as it is anything. Yes, it's marketing, but I love the way that you guys described that it's not about the logo mark. It's not about your font set. It's not about your hex colors and your, all the things. Those are only mere surface reflections, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, and in the book, you utilize the Kantar brands and all of that. So why should bank execs really care about this? I mean, Liz, you bring forward a lot of data in the book, and Allison, you just explained that well, that it's not just so that we look cool, right? or catchy or memorable, or that our messaging is dynamic. It is all those things, and there are bigger reasons, right? So what are some of those? Why should boards and execs care?
I mean, I think that the data that we have in the book really speaks for itself, which says if you can create an emotional and emotive connection with your customers, they spend more, they save more, they give you more of their share of wallet. And the thing that's going to drive emotion is not necessarily, rate campaigns or, whatever it is that you're choosing to put on your website. It's about who you are as an organization and what you do. So brand is what drives the customer behaviors that you need from your customers. And that is what will ultimately drive your revenue or your deposits or whatever it is that you've got a goal to achieve over the next kind of 12 months.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I mean, there's usually two kinds of boards, right? You've got the board, BORED board, which is, they're there to just make sure this thing does not go off the rails. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's boards, and then there's kind of growth boards, right? So people that have been brought in to pivot or adjust the institution. And I can't think of a strategy that works better for both of those types of boards than thinking more like a brand. Because for the boards, to Liz's point, there's retention, there's share of wallet. I mean, there's just cold, hard facts that you can't argue with, right? Yeah. And the great news is there's also words that appeal to that kind of board. There's consistency, recognition. Those are all like red meat and potatoes type things for that group. So you've got that group covered. And then if you've got the kind of the growth board, the new board, right? They want to do something different, that are the ones that are like, hey, I just saw a post about AI. Are we doing that? Like that kind of board. Brand is an amazing strategy for that group as well, because there's a dynamism there. There's new opportunity. We actually argue that brand is really the next frontier for growth, right? It is the next acquisition pool and acquisition strategy. So no matter which one of those you sit under or beside, brand is a super flexible strategy to use for both, because boards become growth boards become boards. So it's pretty foolproof, at least in our experience.
Yeah. I think particularly in this economic climate, it's interesting because I don't know what your inbox looks like, but I've got, I think this morning, 4 different marketing pieces offering me another 0.25% APR if I want to shift my money. And I genuinely every day now, and it's all edging up, and rate wars have begun again. And I think in that kind of environment, yes, it's a game to play, it's a lever to pull. But in terms of thinking about long-term strategy and long-term growth, focusing on a great brand and focusing on being the kind of organization that lives through that brand will deliver much more in the long term than playing at kind of, rate war games in the economy.
Well, I mean, I think about it like, there's 5,000 or so community banks and credit unions in the country. And, the vast majority of them, if you go to their website, it's a stock image. It says trusted and local. And it's like, they're doing, I think we're going to get to the principles in your book in a minute, but it's like, if you just do something different, you stand out. And it's not about being, completely wacky or making yourself look like a neobank and coming up with a new name. It's just, how do you get your mission? How do you get the good things that your bank's already doing out there? Right.
I mean, thinking of it as a brand is also a distribution channel. Right. So you kind of talk about like getting it, getting whatever it is out there. No, you don't have to be crazy. I mean, you can. I'm the one to talk to if you want to do the crazy part. If you do not want to do crazy, you can talk to Liz. But you're right. It's sad but happy at the same time that differentiation is such a low bar of entry in our industry right now. And sometimes doing the counterintuitive thing, which is one of the principles, not just to be contrary, but to test how far you can take that new mindset. It's worked really, really well, right? And if it doesn't, I mean, the positive is, as much as we like to think that the public hangs on our every word as marketers and bank marketers, they don't. So even if it's an abject failure, which would be unfortunate, it's not going to tank the bank. It's just going to be like a really dumb campaign that was unfortunate. But we've all had them and we're still here, right? So permission to do that.
Liz, you mentioned like an email saying a 0.25% increase in rate. And I think those without any other differentiation, if you're just the trusted and local bank, that just gets the rate shoppers. right? But it's also 0.25% is not enough to make somebody who really cares about your brand actually make a switch, right? It's probably for most people accounts to a couple bucks. And for a small subset of the population, like that will matter and they'll go wherever, but they're not tied to the brand anyway. So if you're, but then on the other hand, most banks that I speak with now are talking about how do we make our customers stickier? How do we, sell them more products to keep them around longer, or things like that. But brand is another way to make them stickier, to make them care.
Yeah, and Dan, I think you just said it. It's to stick to the brand. How is it about actually a passionate connection to where it is, rather than just a mobile app where I log in and keep my money and do my stuff? And a 0.25% might entice me because that's all I really care about, versus a brand and a set of, dare I say, outspoken values or personality or personalities or, true community-focused passion or whatever the case may be. Liz and Allison, Dan and I talk a lot on this show about finding your superpower, as a marketing tool and engine and focus and platform to walk forward on. And I think it's very close, Allison, to what you were describing just a few minutes ago, and finding that superpower. And sometimes, again, to your first principle in the book, doing something counterintuitive to speak to that has impact. And it affects relationships that you currently have, because our current customer base or member base are the easiest to speak to. And hopefully, it speaks to others and maybe draws them to you. So, I think those can be great things.
But I think the 0.25%, not to flog this, it actually can be super impactful. What does the 0.25% allow you to do is thinking like a brand. Thinking like a bank is make it really big on the homepage or on the billboard. And I don't mean that in a critical way. That's fine. That's awareness. But resonance, which is thinking like a brand, is that 0.25% may be a few bucks. But if you are a environmentally conscious person, or from research your audience is more philanthropic, let them donate and round up that $3 to $4 to a local charity. So this 0.25% in Liz's inbox, right? You should have a picture of, literacy is extremely important to Liz, childhood literacy. That should be what it allows her to do. That's the ad, that's the hook, which is enabled by the 0.25%. So we're not saying the rates don't matter. They do, but they matter in terms of what they enable you to do. Just like in retail, what the amazing suit allows you to do in an interview, right? It's not about the amazing suit. It's about the outcome that the suit can drive. So that's more thinking like a brand.
There you go. Well, so in the book, we've mentioned it here a couple of times, all four of us have, that the book is based around or goes forward after mindset goes into your 5 principles. So we've talked about doing counterintuitive things. That's the first one. So can you guys share some more about these principles and application and ultimately the takeaways from those, please?
Sure. So, let's just kind of reiterating on the sometimes do the counterintuitive thing. It's very much about being prepared to move out of your comfort zone. And it comes back to the question, we talked about, starting with the right mindset that says, we're not brain surgeons. No one's going to die if the decision that we make today doesn't work out the way that we wanted it to work out. And sometimes it might feel like the wrong thing to do. So, for example, what we were just talking about, acquiring new customers doesn't have to be about going bigger and wider. Actually, one of the things both Allison and I are super passionate about is the idea of creating very niche, very focused banking experiences which do things that matter. To bankers, that's totally counterintuitive to what you would normally do. So that's really how we approach that.
Another counterintuitive example we include in the book is actually from Partners Federal Credit Union, from John Janklis, who is the longtime president and CEO there. And in their effort to become more digital, they actually spent more time out in the field talking to the cast members because they serve all of the Walt Disney companies. So it's a little counterintuitive to start doing a tremendous amount of in-person field research to then go become more digital and possibly create some distance from the membership. But there's some examples like that folks can really kind of put into practice to test that principle out.
Yeah, I think you learn so much by just talking to customers, and going through like business books, and you always see those exact type of stories from every industry of like the CEO that goes out and sits on the shop floor or goes out and meets with customers. And it's always a transformational change of like, oh, well, we thought X was happening, but it's really Y. When we talked to the customer, they didn't care about, I'm going to go back to that, the 0.25%. They cared about the UI of the online banking system. I'm making that up, but you learn so much by going out there. And it's surprising, I think, that we don't see more banks doing that, since the most banks' mission is predicated on that connection.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, unfortunately, when you've been in a community for a period of time, however you define community, and when you've been serving them, you kind of, you talk yourself into that you're the customer or that you're the member, right? And that's not the case, right? Customers and members are super dynamic, which is amazing, which is one of my favorite parts about this industry. So it's a constant education, but not in a way of, oh my gosh, I always have to be catching up. These people are crazy and they're fickle and they're all these things. That's the negative mindset. Mm-hmm. The opportunity with the fact that people have fluidity when it comes to the communities, because I'm sorry, but banks don't define communities, people do, and they're defining them very differently than their zip code. But there's a huge opportunity in that, because they're not defining themselves that they live in Topeka and that is your one and only opportunity. They're defining themselves as a member of 5, 6, 15 communities, all of which you can appeal to in a brand way that is an amazing opportunity for growth and depth in the customer and the member relationship. So the fluidity, and people talk about Gen Z and they switch and they do these things. Yes, they do. And that is an amazing opportunity for financial institutions. If they just define it by the community where they live, you've got one shot and one shot only, and a very limited set of products that you can bring to bear if they just identify themselves as being from a place.
So, Allison, you mentioned a couple of times too that getting them and that process and the kind of how you go do that. And one of your other principles is about embracing tension. And I don't want to embrace tension. Tension makes me feel, makes me feel uncomfortable. And those of you that are listening, I'm wiggling around in my chair because nobody, you're like, embrace tension. That doesn't sound like something that I want to run toward. So why guys embrace tension? What do you mean by that?
Well, we already do it today, right? Bankers already do it today. When you talk about helping someone with a mortgage loan or anything having to do with lending has tension, guys, and it has a lot of contradiction to it. So we already do it today. So it's not as huge of a leap as you might think. But the reason why we encourage folks to embrace tension and create contradiction is because that's where a lot of opportunity can be. The common wisdom in entrepreneurial circles is the best product you can create is fixing something that annoys you. So if you lean in, and I'm not saying like lean into tension like face to face, like we're not, don't yell at people. We're not saying do that. We're just saying there is tension in your organization. And if you lean into that tension, and it is a little cringy, but if you lean into that tension, you're going to find that product or service or whatever that you can fix that starts bringing that entrepreneurial, that brand spirit into your institution. Because there's so many things that are annoying where we all work. And if we lean into that, we can start really solving those things.
And it comes back down into this idea of, a lot of the banks, certainly that I've worked with, there's still a big challenge around siloing. So you have tensions between the goals and objectives of this department and that department, usually marketing and compliance, but there are other relationships. But actually, if you lean into those, you get somewhere great. So I think one of, my favorite things when Allison and I were working together at Nimbus is we had an amazing, leader in the compliance organization. And whereas normally you're fighting to get your content out and do what you want to do, she became a partner. And we took that tension, we turned that tension into a great partnership. Yeah, there was a little bit of, shoveling around and, a little bit of this at the beginning. But where we netted out was incredible. We were faster in getting things to market. We were more creative in getting things to market because we turned attention into a creative opportunity.
So, I think coming out of the next principle starts talking about, how do you run to the tension, right? Cue the remix. You talk a little more how kind of, you found your tension points, you're, trying to kind of go towards them. But I think at that point, a lot of banks and organizations kind of get stuck like, well, how do we've been doing the same thing the same way for so long. How do we actually go about getting more in touch with what our customers want or solving those tension points?
Yeah, no, I think Cue the Remix can absolutely be used to solve tension points because it's really about utilizing and leveraging things you already have or have done, but in a new way, right? So, as marketers, we sort of have this self-imposed pressure and bar to create from scratch, and we celebrate the new and the never been seen. And I'm totally there. Like, I love that stuff too. But that's really undue pressure and tension on yourself, right? I struggle with the mindset that everything we've done is crap. Everything that's new is better because everything in the past was crap. No, it was not. It was the best decision you could make at the time, right? I mean, to do otherwise is to continually start from zero, and you will never build momentum that way. So to me, when you're leaning into the attention of working with compliance or, whatever it is like, go back to some things that you've done, whether they've worked or not worked, but put that fresh lens on it. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to hire a big consultant. You don't have to rebrand the entire bank. None of that. It's just like, what you're doing. They know what they're doing. You have to start with that mindset or else, you're going to be a total jerk. But like, assume positive intent and then build from there. And that's more than philosophy. That's how some of the absolute greatest brands out there today approach ideation and implementation. You look at Target as a wonderful example. I'm big on retail examples because they're not that different than we think. Target was challenged to basically bring in low-cost apparel for women. And the very first thing they did was they went and they partnered. And it didn't work, right? It became kind of a Kmart, for those that are old enough to remember Kmart, Walmart-esque experience. Then they went out and they did bespoke partnerships. So they narrowed it, they niched it, and that's where their collabs started to come in. And that worked out fairly well, but it actually attracted the wrong audience. It didn't attract the moms, it attracted the young people. So they took that exact same thing, that exact same collab, and they collaborated to create the Target brands of products that we know today, right? So it's the Target brand with collaboration underneath. So the point of that is that was 3 different iterations on the exact same topic. There was no like blue sky thinking in that at all. And it is now their number one line of business, or the Target brands for women. And it's become an M&A vehicle for them. So repeat that to yourself for your bank all the way through, and there'll be some really interesting stuff there. That's the remix.
And that speaks also, and you mentioned, and one of the directions you guys go next in the book is about products. And the product's not what it used to be. And that is certainly the case. And I know we struggle in this, again, mindset conversation around brand and personality with so many of our bank clients that want to put a deposit account or loan product in a newspaper ad, and they're going to come knock on the door. They're going to come walk in the lobby. And yeah, without putting down any particular platforms or marketing vehicles or whatever the case may be, that product is not at all what it used to be. So speak a little deeper into that, because it's even about data and it's about lots of things, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the number one point is that people are increasingly buying on beliefs and buying on mission. So when you go to buy a product, you're not necessarily buying the function of that product anymore. And this is particularly the case for, millennials and Gen Z. You are buying from organizations and you are choosing the products that you want based on who's producing them and who's selling them and what else they're doing in the world. Mm-hmm. So you can have the greatest product. Yeah, if I think about the example I always use here is, the Patagonia brand and the Patagonia story. Everyone pays Patagucci prices, but they pay for a great product. But actually, everyone else does this very similar product. But what they don't do is produce it, market it, and then give back to the world in the same way that Patagonia does. That's what product to me is now. It's everything that happens in the supply chain, and it's everything about the organization that's selling and building that product.
Yeah.
And Liz is very kind on that point. I would say for product isn't what it used to be is code for you can't buy your way out of the problem, but like you need to do the hard work, which is the mindset work and the change management work, because you can't buy your way out of it. Like, sorry. Wish you could, but you can't. You cannot buy your way out of some of these challenges that we're talking about. You have to do the mindset work. You have to coach and compose, which is the next one. You have to bring your team along. You have to bring your customers and members along. You can't buy your way out of it. Can't rely on product to do that for you.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of brands that resonate with millennials and Gen Z, which is every bank wants to attract. And, Tom's Shoes gives away a pair of shoes. Everyone you buy, there's a lot of those examples. And you don't see them in banking, but community banks always give back to their communities, right? You're buying the sponsorships. You're already doing that stuff. So it's part of your mission, whether or not you explicitly state it in your mission statements. Or also in the book, you make the point of so many mission statements just sound so generic. I think you put, 3 or 4 of the biggest banks' mission statements, and they all kind of sound the same. But if you can differentiate and say, hey, we give back to this community that we're in, you can kind of stand apart. I mean, how do you think about, like, what do you suggest to banks that are kind of resonating with this and thinking about differentiating their mission statements or trying to weave some of that in? How should they think about that?
I mean, I think from my point of view, the mission statement is kind of the end product of going through the mindset shift to think as like a brand. So creating a mission statement to me is similar to creating, a new visual identity, but it has to come from the will and the goal and the genuine reason for being. So the why of the bank or the credit union.
And the purpose is a big part of that.
Yeah,
Liz.
Yeah. And it's about specificity, right? So it's kind of going to the fluidity, right? Mm-hmm. In the past, saying, we're here for the community, or, Tom's 15 years ago could have said, we care about children's safety or whatever. And that would have been enough. But there's been enough great stuff that's happened and enough not great stuff that's happened that people are like, prove it to me. Prove it to me. So getting specific, whether it's with your mission statement or how you bring that mission statement to life, is really key. So it is the one pair of shoes. It's not, we love our community. It's, we give everyone at the bank, whatever, a day off a month to go buy, those sort of specific things. Great news, you already do that. Your mindset might be like, people don't care about that, or that seems really self-serving. We don't do that for credit. No, I'm not saying you do that for credit, but if you're going to lead with, we care about the community, the onus is on you to then, frankly, to show it, and to show it very specifically. So get just as specific with those things as you do with your rates. If you do that, if you just do that one thing and you like gloss over all the rest of the things we've said, get as specific with how you live your mission as you do with your rates, you will kill it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, just, talking about people saying, oh, we don't want to be self-serving, that to me is part of the embrace the tension and create contradictions. Because one of the things I love about community banks is also the thing that I think holds them back a lot, is that they are very afraid to talk about what they do. They just they want to do it. But actually, that's part of who you are. That's part of your why. And there's no shame in telling those stories. And even better if you can get the community involved in delivering on those things as well. So you get to that idea of multiplier. If people don't know about it, they're not going to contribute to it. And it's not really community. So I think, to me, if community banks can just take all the great things they do and turn that into their story and turn that into their brand, they're going to look really different in a couple of years' time.
And you guys have both said it, Liz, that you're already doing it. Most of them are already doing that. I mean, Dan's agency out of St. Louis and mine here in Mississippi, and we both work with bank and some credit union clients all over the place. And one of the reasons that we've chosen to do so and that we're in this niche is because it's really great people. And they are community-minded and community-focused people. And you guys are both so right. They're already doing so many of those things, probably internally, how they treat their people. And also both their desire and actions to impact the community and literally turn a dilapidated small town downtown area, turn it around and fund that and make it happen and all that. So it's from the single pair of shoes all the way to the big stories like that. And you guys are so right. Those are there. And, they're not telling those stories often enough. So right. I love that you guys have put a platform out here to encourage them to do that.
Yeah. And that's what it should be, really, Chris, is encouraging. Like we see it, right? It's like when you're a parent, it's like you see the potential of your child if they would just stop playing video games. No, but projecting a little bit there. But no, it is there. Like, at the risk of sounding Pollyanna, it is absolutely there. And the wild thing is, what's keeping people back is this sort of misplaced humility. Like, banks are important. Banking is a noble profession. That's what Rilla Delorier says, formerly at Umpqua. And it's a noble profession. It is an essential service. It is okay to talk about the great work you're doing and the people that you help. People actually do want to know about those things because they want to find their place in it. It's not hard, but it is. And so we're seeing a lot of, kind of traction and momentum from the book, and people performing the Starbucks story live from the beginning of the book and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we're just very flattered to see that folks are starting to kind of pick up and try a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest takeaways I loved from the book was almost like the last sentence, right? And this is a theme throughout, but when you're wrapping up.
See what that was.
Well, in kind of the coach and compose section, right at the end, and then you're summarizing at the end. It said, things are not changing; they've already changed, right? And it's like you read a lot of literature, not your book, but you read a lot of the kind of articles in the industry, and it's talking about banks need to become data driven, and here's some trends that are happening. But the reality is it's not, and that's where the world has gone. And banks just haven't caught up, especially on the brand stuff. And it's because it's really hard, right? So the last principle around coaching is super important, is just to realize it's not, we do these things, we just need to put a page on the website or put up a post on Facebook. it's really kind of a mindset shift, and let that mission and let the stuff you're already doing kind of drive forward. Can you talk a little bit more about what you meant around that things are not changing, they've already changed, like what how banks can think about the process to actually like catch up and then move forward with these concepts?
I mean, I think the thing is that, we talked about it a little bit earlier when we said, the growth of brands that you connect with emotionally, the need to do more with the resources and everything that you have within the organization, and the need to change your mindset. So really, you can't not do the things that are required to meet the new needs of people in the marketplace. You can't ignore it. What you need to do is work out how you can address it. Digital banking is not going away. The growth of mission-based purchasing is not going away. So it's really about what can I do? What can I take from what I have today? And how can I really get my organization to just think, what, we've just got to try some of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's no longer an opportunity just to sit and, let things happen around you. So to me, it's very much about let's just accept the things that we know, to your point, all the trends we're seeing, the growth of data, all that kind of stuff, and think, okay, let's accept this is our normal now. And then let's think about how we can use the principles that we've got in the book to start to address it one little step at a time. It's not about a revolution. It's about finding what's the next thing, what's the next thing, and then just building it, but moving. Movement's the important thing.
No, I agree. I think in many cases, revolution would probably be a lot easier than what we're just throw all this out. But I think Dan, to catch up, you also have to know what race you're running.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the heck does we need to catch up even mean? Like, when, going back to the boards, guys, we need to catch up. Okay. Yeah. What are we catching up to? Who are we catching? What do we do when we catch said I'm being silly, but it's to force a point, which is this: you can't have a generic set of products. You can't have a generic brand, and you sure as heck can't have a generic, business idea to catch up or to, be modern. Okay. Be modern to whom? And, and how? And so I'm saying that because you have to narrow your focus. All of this sounds ridiculously hard if it's everything, right? Mm-hmm. If it's every customer, every department in the bank, all at once, that's the revolution stuff. Mm-hmm. No, not saying that is. Let's pick a race that we want to run, that we feel like we can run, that we can get behind, right? You want to be running to something, not from something. So all the stuff out there, banks are bad, they're stupid, they're behind, your core is old, whatever. If you're doing your activities based on that, you're running from something. What we want you to do is to run to something, right? And so that kind of it just takes more work. You can't buy your way there. It's really not fast or easy, but it is, man, you talk about a permanent change. This is not like weight loss on January 1st. This is like real permanent change that can happen. And that's where that coaching comes in. Compose that vision, coach people towards that vision, but it's running towards something, not away.
And you guys both commented early on, and you say it in the book as well, is in that race, Allison, if you stumble, don't check up and stop. You just keep going, and it's, So, and there's so many instances that all of us have in that in our business. Well, we try something and we get, step 1 or 2 down the way. Gosh, that way didn't work. That doesn't mean that you're running the wrong race.
Right.
It's just a matter of, staying the course, sometimes regroup. And that's certainly part of it. And,
and remembering who you're doing the work for, right? As marketers, we got to be really careful here, which is if a campaign fails, who did it fail?
Mm-hmm.
Probably failed you. Doesn't feel good, but that's really not who you're doing the work for. So if we remember who we're there to do the work for, that can really help you just keep going in a race. Because like they're like, oh, sure, that's easy for you to say. You're a this and that. It's like, no, dude, I fall down all the time, but I'm failing myself. And so I own that. If I fail a customer, I'll be super upset. But you gotta, but I don't usually because I know who I'm doing the work for. And that's sort of the lens. So that's a really important part to give yourself the permission to keep going. Because again, you're running towards something. You're not running from the mistake or the, screwed up campaign.
Love that. Well, and you guys do a phenomenal job in the book also of flow. And you mentioned it a little while ago, but the stories and you pause at places and outline takeaways and you make the process of this book, by the way, was my experience with it, is really easy. And Liz, although you incorporate data in here, it's sensibility that's delivering value. It's not, a bunch of numbers that I've got to try to derive and make sense of, and how does it apply to my bank? So really, really sensible stuff. And then for us, really, somewhat feeble-minded ones, you even give some big stuff in here. And just
that was for me.
Okay. But I love that, and it's like, okay, if you didn't get all of this on the couple hundred previous pages, let me give you the big bullet points here. And I love that. And I'm going to teach and talk with my team pretty extensively about these as well, because this is some great carry forward stuff. And this has been phenomenal. And I think really, really a lot of meat on the bone in this conversation for our listeners today, guys.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, yeah. Man. Yeah, been really great. Yeah, and speaking of fun, before we let you go, as we made you guys aware, we have a lightning round where we like to get a little more insight into you. So, yeah. So Dan, since there's two of them and two of us, maybe we could alternate or something. Do this a little differently.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the first question is around, is for you to share kind of what's your personal best or business best, something great that's happened. Liz, why don't we start? I want to start with you.
Well, I'm going to maybe a bit obvious and actually say it's writing the book and getting the book out there. As Allison said, it was a bucket list item for me, which I never thought I'd ever get myself around to doing. With a bit of discipline, a lot of great conversation, it just kind of happened. But the best part of it is actually all the people that I've met off the back of the book. I've been to new and different places off the back of the book. And, it's given me a renewed passion for the work that I do. So I'm really loving the fact that I finally got up and did it.
I think that's awesome. So all of those things, I would say my personal best is that I am no longer intimidated by my Instapot. That is a milestone that I have reached as a past weekend. It does not blow up in your face. It doesn't. So that's really a personal best for me.
So is that from reading the directions or finally just hitting the button and trying it?
Both.
Okay.
Both. But I did. I'm like, this isn't going to explode. So anyway, it doesn't explode on you when you take the lid off, even if it's pressurized. It's hot. But yeah, no, it's fine. So I am totally into the Instapot now.
Right. Well, Allison, do you have a favorite book besides your own?
I mean,
or other resource that comes to mind?
I love to read, so it's having a favorite is a tough one for me. So I'd say business book. I just finished reading Reality-Based Leadership by Cy Wakeman. If you haven't read that, I definitely recommend it. It's tough love, but it's good. And then on the personal side, there is a book I absolutely love, and I'm talking about this constantly. It's called Eating Salad Drunk. And it is a collection of haikus written by comedians. It is hysterical. And so that is another one that I would it has nothing to do with what we talked about today, but it is hilarious.
Okay,
what about you, Liz?
I'm much more boring, but I've got two sides to me. So I'm somewhat obsessed with the US data website. So it's something that when Steve Ballmer left Microsoft, he created and funded this website, which is all about creating beautiful snapshots of data about the US, the people, the population, everything. And it's one of my favorite go-tos, just for really interesting bits to learn about the country. And that's my kind of the data side of my brain. So to keep that in control, the other thing that I've always got on my desk is this one, which is The Practice by Seth Godin. And it's just lots of little inspirations and reminders to engage your creative brain and to kind of engage that different mindset. So I kind of like keep both sides in control with my two favorite bits.
Those are great. Well, let's do so. The next two questions are around the most impactful piece of advice you've ever gotten, and then flipping that around, something that some piece of advice you always give your staff or the team that you're working on. So, why don't we hit both of those at once?
Well, my team going to listen to this? Most impactful piece of advice actually is in the first page of the book. Is from my dad that he gave me, which is you don't need a classroom to be a teacher. So that he gave me when I was, I think, 16 years old, and I've held on to it ever since. Advice. So careful on giving advice to marketers. Just PSA that doesn't need to be said. But so my team, I'm usually challenging them to make an impact rather than just to get stuff done. And that's what I say kind of on repeat. Like, are you making an impact? Or are you just getting stuff done? And that's kind of a theme for me. So
I think my advice received and advice given is kind of similar, because I think it's something that I try to live by. And the first one, the advice I was given is focus on what you learned, not what happened, so that next time you have to do it, you're going to do it better. And the other side that I always kind of try to say to teams is, trust your intuition. Yes, data is amazing, but if it feels right, it probably is.
You have never told me that, just so you know, ever. Usually the opposite, but no, this is good. Now you're recorded.
Now I was going to say you can rewatch or re-listen to this podcast over and over, Allison.
Yeah, I mean, like it feels like it will work. No.
There you go.
So.
Well, guys, this has been a great visit and a great episode. And as I said earlier, there's been some really value-filled stuff for all of our listeners, and I know for Dan and I speak for us as well too. So, like I said, my team is going to read the book and hopefully dissect it, like I have as well. So a lot of great nuggets in there. So thanks for your great work.
Absolutely.
So on that, tell our listeners how they can get your book, how they can get in touch with you guys.
Yeah, I'm huge on TikTok. No, I was kidding. So LinkedIn is where you can find me. That's where we put all of his stuff, this book, any kind of new projects I'm working on. But Liz has a couple other channels as well.
Yep. So I also look after our Twitter feed, which is called Brand Before Bank, as in B, the letter B and number 4. So Brand Before Bank. That's where Allison and I share what we're reading, what we get out of it, and try and pull it back into the book. So it's kind of a nice place to kind of keep the conversation going around the book.
Love that.
And the book's on Amazon, right? Is that the best place to get it?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. So super easy there. And then, just like, Chris and I were talking about, if, bulk orders, things like that, we can absolutely do something there. So you can just reach out to one of us. But yeah, grab it on Amazon. It's on Audible, Kindle, paperback, and the hardback sale we've had has gone, I think, to my mom. But you can buy it in hardback if you want to. But people write in the book, so just get the paperback. But yeah, it's on Amazon.
Yeah. And the other thing is we have the very conveniently named website, which is thinklikeabrandbook.com. And actually there you'll find Allison has done a whole series of podcasts interviews with some of the people that appear in the book and some additional kind of industry influencers who've read the book and come and talk about that. So you can access those there. And we've also got some resources. If people are interested in the book, we've got all the charts from the book are there to download if you want to use them in presentations. We've got a script if you want to act out the vignette. And we've got some ideas around workshops that people might want to run in their organizations as well.
All right.
Outstanding.
We'll link all that stuff up in the show notes, and you don't have to do all the searching. But thanks for that. So you got a great resource there. I'm definitely going to check out some of those recordings and continue on the brand journey here.
There you go.
There you go. Well, and we'll send everybody to our website, bankmarketingshow.com, where they'll find this episode, all of these links to you guys, your book selections. I don't know about the Instapot stuff, Allison, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can just connect with me. I can talk to you. I can talk you through it.
There you go.
For sure.
But to get connected to you guys, and we can't thank you enough for your time. Phenomenal job on this. Really great to spend this time with you as well. And we look forward to engaging with you guys going forward.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. Talk to
Thanks
you
a
later.
lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.